Welcome back to History Saver 1941. We are in downtown Savannah, Georgia, and you know me, you know us, we love history, we love museums, and this has got to be one of the coolest museums right here. This is the Webb Military Museum right here in Savannah, Georgia. You can come check them out, but not only can you go in here and see a bunch of cool stuff, but you can also purchase a bunch of cool stuff. So come check them out right here at Webb Military Museum in Savannah, Georgia, and let's go inside and take a look around. So we're here in the Webb Military Museum, and I gotta tell you, it's worth every penny, guys. It's only $10 a ticket for adults, seniors 62 and over, you're 9. Veterans are 8, children 8 to 17, 6, and under 8, you're free. And if you're in the military, well, it's on the house here. But check this place out behind me. As you walk in, you got this awesome painting called Comrade. World War I theme painting, and man, just all kinds of stuff. So we're going to take a look around. We're going to speak to the owner a little bit, and we're going to show you one of the neatest military museums that I've ever been to outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So let's check her out. So right when we walked in, I noticed this, the World War II Class A's here, belong to a veteran, no doubt, but if you look at the overseas cap, it's a glider patch. So very, very cool. And then right here we have some Japanese flags and some rifles. Very, very cool stuff. There's stuff everywhere in here. So you just kind of have to come and look around. Revolutionary War stuff. Lieutenant General John McLaughlin, U.S. Marine Corps, served 1918 to 2002. He was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was a Binh Dinh Military School graduate and Savannah resident. He was captured in 1950 by Chinese communists and was a POW for 3 years. Very cool Savannian here. And his portrait with a little memorial plaque here. And then, wow, just uniforms. And the best part is, some of this stuff is for sale. So you can walk out of here with a piece of history. And, man, just very cool. Here's some Civil War stuff. Charleston slave tags, CSA sportsman's buttons, rifleman's buttons, War of 1812 uniform buttons that come from Fort Moultrie, Charleston. Pocket sundial from Edisto Island. Very cool local or near local artifacts. And then here's some MiG-21 logbooks. Roman crossbow. Check this thing out. That's a bolt to a Roman crossbow. There we go. From the Siege of Jerusalem, AD 70. And then some World War I German helmets. How do I know it's World War I German helmets? Well, you've got the two little knobs you see that come out of the side of the helmet are for visors, bulletproof visors. And then I just noticed this, very cool German SS, some Afrika Korps helmets. Oh yeah. Officers' visors. Here's that gentleman's uniform. So some very cool World War II German stuff. And then bullets and a Kennedy tie pin for Kennedy supporters. Well, Jap bombs kills 350 at Pearl Harbor. This place is just awesome. I've come in here several times before when I've been in Savannah, and it never fails every time we come in this place. Here's another uniform here, World War II uniform of Lieutenant Benjamin T. Bird. He was a World War II officer, and he was known as Cookie Bird because he was the owner of Bird Cookie Company that you'll find here in Savannah, and a World War II veteran. So this is his uniform. And then you also have some Civil War displays here. Here in this series, we were at Fort Pulaski. We were going to Jackson, a little too hot, so we decided to skip up on Jackson this time, cover it in our next trip to Savannah, which we do come to Savannah quite a bit. But here is who this museum is dedicated after, and it's James D. Webb, Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Air Force, 1927 to 2008, and his wife, Doreen, the owner's parents. And if you'll notice, right here, here's a plaque with their inscription. Webb Military Museum is dedicated to two people who inspired him to love history. His parents, James and Doreen Webb. My father was a career Air Force officer born and raised in North Georgia rather. Growing up with my brother and two sisters, we traveled all over the United States and Europe. It was a wonderful experience that most people would not get. And his father was a veteran of World War II in Vietnam. And it was his mother's life who got him interested in history. She was born in downtown London, England in 1927. She was 13 when World War II started. While they were growing up, his mother had no problem telling her wartime stories and experiences. I thought everyone's mother lived in a bomb shelter and carried a gas mask to school until I was 11. It was at that time I realized my mother had a special childhood, as horrible as it was. When I started off collecting hobby, small items, and searching for military relics in the woods of Germany, turned into a lifelong interest that has now turned into the Webb Military Museum. I'm gonna tell you what, if I could be able to grow up looking for World War II artifacts, you wouldn't find a happier person. But this is really neat. This is some very neat Civil War artifacts, a breastplate, some bullets. Looks like maybe a haversack hook there, and a little button. I think that may be a North Carolina. Not exactly sure, but wow, pretty cool. And you can find some information in here on some very cool individuals. Some letters from written in 1833, Decatur County, Georgia, and all kinds of different things. It's a very cool Civil War artifacts, and Savannah is steeped in Civil War history. But one of the coolest things in this case I have noticed is this right here. That is a autograph print of Robert E. Lee. During the Civil War, it was common to carry a photo of a general around, get him to sign that, give his autograph. And right here, General Robert E. Lee has actually signed his name and autographed that photo. Pretty cool. And then here is a Medal of Honor from 1896. So they were awarded to Union veterans 31 years after the Civil War. And that medal is unnamed. Pretty cool. And then a copy of the Hunley coin I see there. So, a skull carved out of human bone. Huh. That's interesting. And then, in the words of JD from the History Underground, guns, guns, guns. See a lot of early pistols here, flintlock pistols. They were also used during the American Civil War some in the early war. You have some of the Colt revolvers. And you also got some Bowie knives, short artillery swords, Confederate money hidden in the wall in the Savannah home, champagne corks that come off of a Confederate ship that sunk in New Orleans, a Union campaign chair, a Confederate Bowie knife named to R.B. of the 14th South Carolina Infantry Battle of Ox Hill, and then some boots from 2nd Lieutenant Robert Fisney of the Augusta Volunteer Artillery. Very cool. We could spend all day in here and we could show you everything, but if we did that, we wouldn't we wouldn't have time to, really do anything else. But one of the cool things here is this front portion of a MiG. I believe it's a MiG. But check this thing out. Holy crud almighty. So a lot of neat stuff here, and especially this front cockpit portion of a MiG. Man, that's neat. So if you ever want to get up close and personal to a cockpit of a MiG, this museum has got a freaking cockpit in it.
It's Webb Military Museum. We call it Webb Military Museum because I'm Gary Webb. This is my museum. It'll feature 8 different American conflicts from the Civil War to the Cold War, and I'd say 70% of the stuff is named to somebody. So as you go through the museum, you'll find a lot of things that are named to particular people. Robert E. Lee. This particular Bible was named to a gentleman that was saved by his Bible at Gettysburg. He was shot in the back through the canteen into his Bible, saving his life on July the 2nd. He would die 48 years later in 1911 on July the 2nd. So July the 2nd was his number. The boots from a prominent Augusta family in Finzi. Anybody from Augusta, Georgia that comes in, they recognize that name. Very prominent family name. Some of the things I do like in here is a combat mace. Where are you going to see a combat mace like that? Some Confederate went medieval. Let's scroll on to the next page. Indian Wars, that was really a period between the Civil War and the Spanish-American War. These are all Savannah-related uniforms. Chatham Artillery, Savannah Volunteer Guard. This particular uniform belonged to Malcolm McLean. He was a prominent Savannian. His great-great-grandson will be the mayor of Savannah in the 60s. Very rare you see the hats. They didn't really fly much. When Bismarck unified the states in a country he called Germany, everybody went to the spiked helmets, but it really didn't work for us. The big cords, when you put your helmet on, make sure you put your cord on your belt, because if your hat flies off, it'll keep it from landing on the ground and being stomped by a horse, because they're made out of cord. And these artifacts are actually from Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand.
Really? How'd you come across this stuff?
A lot of stuff was dug up in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s before these places became national parks. You used to just go and look around. Now you think about it, Custer had 300, 400, 500 men, I can't remember, 3,000 Indians of course. When the Indians massacred these people, they were only interested in the guns. All their possessions just got skewed everywhere. So this is all stuff that laid out there for dozens and dozens of years. But that's exactly what that is. Now, Spanish-American War, they still got beautiful uniforms. Of course, that started when the USS Maine exploded. And here's a bowl that's been hammered out of part of the USS Maine. And when the explosion happened, George Miller was killed, and that's his USS Maine Donald Duck hat there. Here's another prominent Savannian, Colonel Shelby Myrick. This is his adjutant uniform to a general. I also have his horse blankets too, with Georgia on there too. Now, when you get past the Spanish-American War, the uniforms change. We go to khaki brown, and it stays that way for a good generation. That's probably one of the best nurses' uniforms I've ever seen. That was a Canadian nurse. I have photographs of her wearing her uniform and a lot in surgery, doing surgical work. She was also an ambulance driver with the St. John's Ambulance Brigade. That's her smock there. And beautiful illustration of Marines storming a bunker, so I put all the Marine Corps stuff in there. And who doesn't like trench knives? I love it. When we continue to the World War I, this is Eddie Rickenbacker's uniform here. He was the highest decorated American soldier, the Audie Murphy of World War I. He does sign the inside of his uniform, and here's two other signatures. Probably the rarest American helmet, you may never ever see one, is the Type 2 model. It was designed by Bradford Dean, who loved Greek and Roman history, and you can see how Greek and Roman it looks. But it looked too much like the Germans. The Ford Motor Company would make 2,000 of them, but most of them were destroyed. It's hard to find photographs of them, much less an original one.
Wow.
Now, when we get to Imperial German here, everybody likes the spiked helmets. The spikes were designed. My sword was coming out of your helmet, it would glance off. But by World War I, they're more ceremonial looking. But it stood for infantry, the bull for artillery, the mortar board for heavy cavalry. But if you're going to be the elite, you're going to be the Death Head Regiment, which is light cavalry, aristocrats. Now, the German helmets they designed in 1960 were the best anybody's ever seen. They had the horns on there. That allowed you to put this extra plate But the rarest of the German helmets was the ones they made for their allies, the Ottomans. And that's down there. The brim and the brow is removed in order for them to pray 5 times a day, since they're Muslim Turks. All right, rise of the Nazis. Of course, Hitler took over a lot of countries. One was Austria. The man who annexed Austria for Hitler was Arthur Seyss-Inquart. That's his white diplomatic hat. He would be executed at the Nuremberg trials primarily for his crimes against the Dutch people. But that's an original ballot to bring Hitler into Austria. Do the Austrian people want the Third Reich under Hitler? Yes or no? Yes. Seems like the ballots never change. I do have one of his personal Mein Kampfs, by the way.
So the Mein Kampf that you have was actually Hitler's Mein Kampf.
That's belonged to Seyss-Inquart, yeah. That's Seyss'. And it says from the Reich Commission. These are personal ones that he gives out.
Oh, wow.
Of course, Mein Kampf was originally named 4.5 years against the lies, stupidity, and cowardice. But Hitler's editor said, hey, Dolph, come on, lower it down a little bit. So they went to Mein Kampf. But my favorite case would be the Battle of Britain case, because here we feature, this is my mother's little gas mask she carried for 5 years. There's a picture of Mom when she's 17 with her friends all skinny because they're all on rations. And my granddad's fire brigade helmets. HR meant heavy rescue, and he was also in the River Thames fire formation. Now, if you look at that bombed out building, my mother gave me that photo when I was like 12 or so, and on the top floor there's a mirror pitched around the mantle that all survived that blast, but to the 4 doors to the right you find my mother's house, and that's the first month of the war. Now my favorite gas mask is Oyster Baby gas mask, and this will give you a more perspective on how the babies, there you go, isn't that cool?
That is neat.
You know, sticking babies in here. All right, let's move to Pearl Harbor. All right, of course, Pearl Harbor started us into the war. Now, this is an original trunk from the USS Oklahoma. Now, the Oklahoma was torpedoed 5 times, turned over, trapping 450 men who would later perish. You rarely ever find anything from the Oklahoma. Finding stuff from the Arizona is even easier. But this sailor got off the Oklahoma, went home to Seattle before Pearl Harbor happened, so that's why it exists. Very rare to find that. I also have a California hat, a Downs, and a Pennsylvania. Very hard to find Pearl Harbor stuff, but I've got quite a bit of it too. Got some Japanese things over here, and here's some more American uniforms in World War II. I like this one because under the collar, lapel, there's the goldfish. It's an unofficial patch. You can apply for it if you are shot down over water and you get back to your forces. But keep in mind, over 10,000 American airmen went into the Pacific, never to be seen again. So it's very rare to survive in the Pacific. If you're familiar with Gloria Steinem, the women's liberator in the 60s and 70s, this is her aunt. And these are 2 of her WAC uniforms.
Wow.
German, got a lot of interesting German stuff. Probably the most interesting would be the napkins taken out of Hitler's house in the Berghof. They came from a vet who picked up a postcard of a hallway. He writes to his wife that he's in Hitler's hideout. He takes the photo album, and he also takes the 2 napkins off of the table. Complete Hitler youth uniform. Came in a house in Detroit. Man passes away. Forgot to tell his kids he was in Hitler. This is for females. And I like that uniform because it's not only featured in this book, but you can see it. At one time it was green. If you want one German SS uniform, the SS Panzer uniform is the one to have. Mine's just to the Adolf Hitler Division.
Wow.
And this SS uniform belonged to Karl Marie Demmelke, but he was head of the German. Hugo Boss designed all the German uniform. He apparently did a pretty good job. We have the 8th Air Force that originated here, so we got great 8th Air Force stuff. This guy was in the 445th Bomb Group. When I got his uniform grouping, I also got his yearbook, post-war, and that's the one Jimmy Stewart was in. So Jimmy Stewart's autographs it. I got several photographs. And nobody had dog tags me, by the way. 600 dog tags. This was, and you notice the Caterpillar pin. That's another award, a civilian award. If your parachute out and your parachute saves your life, you can apply for the Caterpillar pin. I've never seen one on a uniform because they're unofficial, but I did Google this guy and found out he wrote a book. When I ordered the book, there's a picture of him wearing the uniform. And this one He painted his Caterpillar above his unit after he escaped from Stalag 3A. All right, we get to the airborne section as the war winds down. Got good airborne stuff. This is the typical jump jacket you see in all the movies. And this particular gentleman, he was in the 504. He has 3 stars on his wings, indicating 3 parachutes, and he also has 4 Purple Hearts. He is featured in the book, the Devils and Baggy Pants. The concentration camp items are original. They came out of Buchenwald concentration camp. The diamond just indicates that he's a communist. If he was also Jewish, he would get a second triangle forming the Star of David. Very rare you find a dress. That is a female dress with a star that says in Russian, female Jew. These are a couple veterans. This gentleman here was on the first wave of Iwo Jima. This gentleman here was one of the 900 Marines that went to Londonderry, England. Most Marines went to the Pacific. Only 900 went to Londonderry, England. I also have 2 photo albums from this gentleman. There's a lot of photos of the King of England and Churchill. And there's a citation in his scrapbook saying that I, Francis Williamson, will abstain from alcohol for 2 months. And I don't know about you, but he is a Marine. This is Ireland, so that may not have been possible. James Killicaine, last commander of the Yorktown. If you go to Charleston at Patriot Point, you'll see the Yorktown. There's some information about Killicaine. He does document his 9 kills out of his gun camp, which I've never seen that before.
Wow.
When we get to the Korean War, nothing much changes with the uniform, but a couple interesting things in here are the Marine Corps uniform that belonged to a Savannah who was not only captured by the Germans in World War I, but he was also captured by the North Koreans. I've never seen a POW medal with a star. Another local Savannah was Chuck Bazin. This is his Korean War stuff. He was one of the original Flying Tigers. And I wish I could know this guy's uniform because he does have a Medal of Honor, and this one also has the Medal of Honor, but not named. We got great Vietnam stuff, starting over here with Westmoreland. This is one of General Westmoreland's uniform. I do have a photo of him wearing it.
Wow.
Donald Davis was part of the Sante Raid. He would be featured in the book The Raid. Rick Swafford was a tunnel rat. He's featured in the book The Tunnels Cochise. And the Bob Hope stuff came from his 68-69 tour of Vietnam.
So this was actually Bob Hope's.
Yep.
Wow.
That he wore in 68-69. Now, when Westmoreland was relieved of command, Crichton Abrams took over. His secretary was Arlene Price, and that's her little miniskirt. It's timeless. Got more interesting Vietnam stuff in here. Just some nice camouflage, nice group. Probably one of the rarer things is the issued Tomahawk. The government issued made 5,000 of them, I believe, or 4,000, and they sent them to Vietnam. Only issued 200 to the 101st Airborne. Then said that's a bad idea and destroyed them all. They tried to get the Tomahawks back. This guy put his initials on it and said he lost his, but I've never seen another one. Very rare.
Wow. So what's the story with the plane here?
Well, this is a Russian MiG-21. I did business with a guy in town, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, he goes to East Germany, where he'd been a military intelligence officer, and the communist countries had no money, and the generals had a lot of armaments, and he worked a deal to bring, I believe, 25 or 26 of these to Savannah, Georgia. It would just take me about 8 years to get one. So, it's hard to get a Russian MiG. And I just had a cockpit.
Well, that's the only part you really need, huh?
Yeah, it's the only one that would fit in the music. Of course, after Vietnam, I can't keep up with all the wars, so this is my catch-all case. That is one of Saddam Hussein's uniform and painting, the cane taken out of the Baghdad Palace. My brother's in the first Gulf War. His name is Arabic and English, and he's an advisor to the Saudis, so he wears the rank of major too. And a very rare Fedadine helmets. This is Saddam Hussein's bodyguards. He had his younger son Uday in charge, and Uday likes Star Wars, and there you go.
So this was Saddam Hussein's one of his personal uniforms.
That's correct, and the king.
Wow.
And that's pretty much sums up the museum, but there's a lot more to see here, and you just got to come out and see it. It's a very comprehensive museum with a lot of great stories. I'd say 70% of the items in here are named to somebody, and it's got a great narrative. Not a boring history lesson.
What is the driving force behind your passion in history?
Well, I was fortunate to have great parents. My dad being an Air Force officer for 30 years, but my mother's, I guess, history of growing up in London during the war and with all my other German relatives. I spent 10 years in Europe growing up. I went to college in Munich, high school in Frankfurt, spent several years in Norway, France, and about 7 or 8 states. So I was well traveled before I came to Savannah, but I just got interested in history because of my mother's life that she experienced. And I can assure you, not a lot of people experience what she experienced. But once you start collecting, you collect. I don't play golf and I don't have a boat, so this is what I like to do.
Well, guys, there you have it. This is Mr. Webb. This is probably one of the coolest museums I have ever seen outside of the Gettysburg Museum of History. So if you want an up close and personal touch with history and items, I mean, come on, where can you find a Rickenbacker uniform? I mean, let's get real.
Else. And we're open 7 days a week.
Well, where are you guys located? What's your physical address here?
411 East York Street in historic Savannah, Georgia.
Well, there you go, guys. Always finding somebody that knows a lot more than what I do, and keep preserving history. Stay safe from the Webb Military Museum in Savannah, Georgia. Come out and visit these guys. You won't be sorry. And the best part is not only can you see this stuff, examine this stuff, but you can also take away a personal piece of history.
We sell it all here.
Yeah. Hey, what do you say? Come out here and check it out for yourself for History Saver 1941. Keep preserving history. Stay safe. We will see you soon.